Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out Confession. Story 1. I keyed a car because they opened their door and hit mine. I was sitting in parking lot waiting on my girlfriend to get out of a store. I had dark tinted windows and this car pulled beside me. This woman got out and slammed her door into mine and came over to look for a dent. They were 3 people in the car and they looked and started laughing about it. It ran all over me, so when my girlfriend came out I opened my door and keyed the car. Story 2. I threw tens of bags of rubbish into the countryside. Here in parts of the UK, the people who collect waste have been on strike for a while. It's the latest strike plaguing the UK, following doctors, nurses, teachers, train drivers. It was already becoming tedious as hell. Then they extended it. Then again. Nobody has collected our bins in over a month, meanwhile I'm about to get hammered on a self-assessment tax bill to pay for. What public services? Nothing works in this broken country. We moved into a new build in July. Rubbish has been mounting up out back and looks like shit. I finally found time to do a run to the public waste disposal site and the queue was tens of cars long. So I just snapped. Drove home through quiet country lanes tossing rubbish bags out the window every now and then. Now my house is clean. I don't even fucking care. Story 3. I kicked a hitchhiker out of my car in the middle of the desert. About 8 months ago, I was driving alone on a trip to visit my parents. Most of this drive goes through a desolate desert with barely any vegetation. Approximate an hour into the drive I saw a 20 to 30-year-old with shorts, t-shirt, backpack, and a water bottle giving me the thumbs up on the side of the road. Considering the road is less used nowadays, I decided to help him out because it didn't seem like he would see anyone else that day. At first he seemed quite normal at first, but after we introduced each other and had a couple conversations, he started to act strangely. He would occasionally flick his head twice and make a face, but would continue with the conversation like nothing happened. About 30 minutes after driving him, he started talking politics and was very adamant on his way of viewing things being correct. I wasn't afraid of sharing my own thoughts and opinions, so I did as respectfully as I could. Without warning he cut me off mid-sentence and screamed at the top of his lungs. I was shocked and really didn't know what to do. Looking back, he was obviously on drugs. He pushed me past the point of comfort in my own vehicle at that point, so I pulled over and ordered him to get out of my car. He took his stuff and once outside I zoomed off, leaving him at least 30 kilometers away from the nearest town. Later, when I arrived at my parents' house, I looked over to the passenger side door, and he left his water bottle. I assume he was fine, but who knows, maybe I killed some druggie because I didn't look to my right for a couple hours. Story 4. I used to steal money from my grandma and spent it at school. When I was in elementary and middle school, my grandma used to beat me when I got home from school for no reason. I am autistic and didn't know how to express my emotions, so I would have tantrums quite frequently and my parents nor my grandmother knew of nothing to console me. I would only have them at home because I was a mute child in school. After a while, I would take money out of her wallet or anything I found around the house and spend it on candy at school. It became so bad that I stole $100 one time and I tried to spend it at the school book fair and my teacher had called my grandma. She was not happy, and she beat me for it. I stopped around my 8th grade year. My mother ended up moving into the house when I was 20. My grandma told her she could live there in hopes she would help fix the house for her. My grandma was living at my aunt's at the time. I creaked into one of the back rooms where all my grandmother's things were and I was looking for things from my childhood I thought I would like. This is where I found a ring my grandma told me I would have when I was grown up, and I took it. I also stole my great-grandmother's ring and a bunch of cameras that day as well. She never found out and I am 21 years old today. Story 5. I disabled appliances in my house because my landlord refused to pay for oil she used. I thought I won the lottery when I moved into a new house a friend had recently bought. She bought the house for the sole purpose of renting it out and I decided to rent the top floor, making it my own little studio with a big roof terrace. The bottom floor had their own outside area. The way it was explained to me, the roof terrace was part of my studio. The house used to be a hostel and was sold with everything still in it, and it was quite a mess. I got a few friends over for the weekend to clean everything up, buy a few new things like outside furniture, and make it look pretty. It was hard work, but afterwards it looked amazing, especially the roof terrace, which I turned into my own slice of meditation/lounge heaven. After about a month, my friend decided she was going to move out of her own house, to rent it out and make more money, and move in with us, but there was no room available, so I wondered what her plan was. Turns out she wants to take part of the roof terrace and turn it into her room. So I argued it was part of what I rented. Turns out she meant I could use it while she allowed it, but it wasn't part of my rental. Of course we argued, but when it got to the point of fighting and losing a friend in a house, I decided to budge and adjust the roof terrace to fit her room. To her credit, she only took 60 sq feet, but it was a sign of things to come. Long story short, she was cheap, was slow with fixing things around the house, always sought the cheapest solutions that would break again quickly, would put a timer on the hot boilers so there would often be no warm water for showers, would constantly complain about leaving lights on, etc. etc. But what finally pushed my buttons to my confessional was when she took my motor oil, a full gallon, and put it in her car. When I came home and saw it missing, she first denied until she couldn't deny no longer. She then admitted but refused to pay for the replacement. We had a huge fight and I told her I'm going to look for a new house. In the weeks following, I disabled the washing machine, the oven, the fridge, the locks, and her car. She had to fix all of them, costing her way more than just replacing my oil. She never suspected it was me for some reason, and I left 3 weeks later, never to speak to her again. I never told anyone cause it makes me look petty and vindictive, but I'm not sorry at all, maybe even a little bit proud that I stood up for myself. Story 6. My door tapped another car in the parking lot and I left without leaving a note. This happened just today and the guilt is taking over me. Let me explain real quick. I was getting into the back seat of my roommate's car in a very busy Target parking lot. All the cars were parked very close together, and when I opened the door, it slightly tapped a very nice new car beside ours. When I pulled the door away, I noticed the tiniest little white spot on the other car, hardly noticeable. It was about the size of a sesame seed, and the only reason I could see it was because the rest of the car was beautiful and looked brand new. I immediately wanted to leave a note, but my roommate convinced me that it wasn't a big deal and that we should just leave. So we did. And the more time is passing, the more guilty I feel. I don't know what to do. It was such a minor mark and I don't even know if the owner will realize, but ugh. My guilty conscience is killing me. What should I do? Sad face. Story 7. I stole money from my son's wallet while I visited his house. My son, 20M, is much more successful than my wife and I, 43M. We are not in a great spot financially after my wife was laid off from her job while I was working a part-time minimum wage job. We barely make enough money to keep our house. My son invited us to visit at his home and stay for dinner. He lives alone in this huge house, from my standards, and that idea led me through this train of thought about security. As well as keeping an eye on everything in the house because my wife works for a home security company. We were short on money that month, and while my wife was talking with our son, I found his wallet and I looked inside. There was a total of $150, give or take a few. I took a total of $70 from his wallet and went back to the room they were talking in. I feel really bad and embarrassed. My son can never know of what I did that night. I should have just asked him if we could have some money to get ourselves back on our feet. Son, if you find this, I'm sorry. Story 8. I'm a liar, but only in one tiny stupid regard. I say I just woke up all the time when I absolutely did not. This isn't spicy, but I honestly just wondered if anyone could relate. I truly pride myself in being an honest person with one exception. I find myself constantly lying mostly just to neighbors and co-workers by saying I just woke up and I don't know why. I guess I feel like it takes the pressure off me to be social and put together. Gives me an out if I come off weird? I dunno. I do it with no forethought, in most cases it will just pop out of my mouth and leave me wondering why I said it. Story 9. The times I stole a ham toy from Toy Story in a big yellow Imaginext castle. 1 4M, and these separate events happened in 2014 and 2015 respectively. TLDR at the end of the story. Both of these incidents had to do with a currency at our school that we could use to buy actual items, like toys, gizmos, anything a young child would dream of. And on both of these occasions, did I not have the currency to buy any items, and instead chose to steal the items my classmates bought. I have successfully moved on from both of these incidents, as they've now become a laughing stock to me. This first instance occurred in 2014, as previously stated. I was in kindergarten at the time, and from what I can recall, we would go to these classrooms turned into mini shops that would sell the items and use the school's currency as payment. I do faintly remember getting some items, but this one particular incident I remember well. We'd go to the shop again, and I either didn't have any currency for the shop, or I was misbehaving. Either way, seeing other people be able to get things that I couldn't, made younger me extremely jealous. One of my classmates happened to get a ham toy from Pixar's Toy Story. Keep this in mind. When returning to the classroom, I had a devious plot: steal ham from my classmate and try to get away with it scot-free. The plan was, I'd go to the backpack cubbies where all the backpacks were, and being perfectly concealed in a position where nobody would figure out what I was doing, I'd steal the ham toy and put it in my backpack. I don't recall what my excuse was, but I got away scot-free with no repercussions. At least, so I thought. The classmate whom I stole it from was very angry, and it would take a long period of time for him to let go of his anger and accept my countless apologies. I don't currently know of where I hid the ham toy, but I do remember it was in my closet. Now, this wasn't the only incident I'd steal from someone who bought from the gift shop at my school. The second time was now in first grade, and feeling lucky and being under the same circumstances as last time, I took my chances. I tried stealing again, except from a different person this time. Problem was, they had saved up to buy a huge yellow Imaginext castle. Younger me for sure thought I could get away with sneaking a huge yellow castle into my bag. I was wrong, for instead I got caught and, if I remember correctly, was told off by both the principal and a sheriff that stealing and theft were wrong. Thankfully I was left off with a warning, but had some explaining to do to my grandparents, who had to pick me up early. TLDR, stole a toy pig, and got so confident that I tried stealing a big toy castle. It went horribly wrong. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.